This is your Monday Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand, Patrick Reusse here as well. Patrick, good to see you on this it's bright out already. This bright Monday morning. We got some snow over the weekend. It was a weird snow, wasn't it? It was raining. Then I went to bed. The next thing I know, I woke up, there's like 6 inches of snow. But
yeah, it was. I looked out when the rain started, and it was immediately becoming ice on the road, and then on our driveway, and then I heard a little sleet against the window, and then as old men do, I had a tendency to get up. I was up at 5, and I looked out, and I went out and shoveled the little walk we have here, and it was way more snow than I thought. And then once you shovel the snow, you got to go get your salty stuff and throw that on the ice because it was a skating rink. So, and of course, it did not prevent our soccer team from playing, even though
unbelievable, right?
Yeah, they played in 3 different types of weather, so that was interesting. But we can talk about that later, I guess.
Yeah. So you want to have an outdoor soccer game in Minnesota in early March? This is what you might get.
I was gonna get going on this. When did we decide that March was viable for outdoor events? We do that, and the Gophers are scheduling their first Big Ten series on March 25th or something outside and stuff like. But we don't do that in March. We can't be out. We can't play outside in March unless we got skates on or skis or something. These are not events that are supposed to be played in March.
No.
The soccer schedule is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. What is the hurry? Why do we have to start in February?
Well, this year it's because of the World Cup. They're trying to get it all done before the World Cup, but their season lasts way too long anyway. It's like a double NFL season basically.
Yeah,
but they play twice a week sometimes, but it's pretty ridiculous.
Yes, it is. Anyway, that's not the most vital thing, but it's just so stupid that we're playing here outdoors. It's March. It's still our weather hasn't changed. It's not nice in March, generally speaking. Okay.
No,
we're not conducive to outdoor activities. Okay.
No, it is not. It's in March is the month of illusions. We think it's going to be nice, but it's not. No.
Yes.
Speaking of illusions and skating rinks, what's going on with the Wild? Maybe we can start there because I texted you kind of the rundown of what I want to talk about, as I often do, and I wrote on there something like, have the Wolves eclipsed the Wild? And that's probably just temporary. Everything's going to change at a certain point here again, because that's what happens in 82-game seasons. But the Wild lose again, 6-3 to Dallas. They can't stop anybody right now. And that, offense has kind of been most of their identity this year, I think. The balanced scoring, the depth. But, when every team needs to stop a puck every now and then, and neither Talbot nor Kakkonen nor the defense is playing very well right now. That's a problem. And they've, what is this, like 7 out of 8 or 8 out of 9 now that they've they got the one win the other day against they pulled that one out against Philadelphia. We thought they might be turning it around, and then they've lost 2 since then. So I don't know what to make of this right now. Just a little lull or some serious trouble.
I was having this thought that what I really liked, I'm not saying that I sit in front of TV and watch every minute, but what I liked about this team for 40 games was they played fast, right?
Yes.
I really liked the fact when they hired Dean Evason, looks like a crusty old coach, right?
Yes.
But he's been the exact opposite. They've been up and, let's go to the other end. And if it causes us to be a little loosey-goosey, that's okay. But one great thing they were doing for weeks on end was they'd go down into the corner and skate out with the puck. They wouldn't get stuck down in there and, fight. They had all these defensemen who could skate the puck out, and they were bringing the puck out of the corners. And, the goalie was Cam Talbot was probably better than he usually actually is. Last year, goalies are unreliable people for the most part. There's a few that are great every year, but not all of them. But, they were, it was fun. They were winning 5-3, right? It was up and down the ice. It was great. But, my fear is we're going to start hearing about, well, we really got to tighten it up defense. I mean, we had this with the North Stars of various times where we would decide we'd get beat in the playoffs and then we'd have to change our style to a more physical style. And that those teams in the early 80s that were high scoring teams that, they were a little loosey goosey like this team. I'm very curious as to if we're going to decide we got to get tougher now or something here at the trade deadline, and then you kind of take away the whole Kaprizov style of hockey. I don't know. I think you just got to ride with this, and hope the defense. You played a long time without Spurgeon, and you managed to hang in there and win, and now Dumba's back too. And the other thing, Mike, is March is absolutely filled with home games. The rest of March, if this goes on for a couple of more weeks, panic. But I would still think that playing at home and the fantastic record they had at home until about 2 weeks ago should carry them through this month eventually once they get their act together. But I don't know. They were probably playing over their heads, and now they're probably playing well below their potential. But but it is amazing. The NHL, since they started giving away the free points there, and
right,
they managed to keep the leagues, that middle part of the league, really balanced. And now all of a sudden, they're tied with Dallas for like third in the division now.
Yes,
right?
I know.
Like that. It's weird. It's extremely weird. But I still think that they're they got Brodin, you got Spurgeon, you got Dumba, you got the guys on the back end. Dumba's not a great defensive player, but they got to start stopping some pucks, but they got to start scoring more goals. You can't just only score goals when you pull your goalie, right? Suhan pointed that out today, that when they had a goalie, they were outscored 4-1. And then when they didn't have a goalie, they at one point it outscored them 2-0.
That's right, because Kaprizov got a couple goals late to get him close.
Right, to get him close. But I don't know. It is. They got booed, I guess, at the end of the game last night. So
deservedly so. I mean, this.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
This is a team that was like the best team in the NHL for a while, or like had the best record in the NHL. And now you're right, they're kind of fighting for a playoff spot. It's not like they can just coast into the finish line here too, because there's like still a third of the season left. There's still 28 games left. If I'm counting this up right, or 28 games left.
By the way, is there anything stupider than the NHL trade deadline?
It's like
deadline, like 8 games left when they start making trades.
I know.
Unbelievable.
I know.
So, that's okay. We can make a trade in game 62 or something. It's ridiculous. It's always been that way, but it is. It is kind of alarming. By the way, did you see the crowd last night? 18-8 or something like that. I mean, the loyalty that team has had since they came to town is just incredible. The one time it looked like they were really going in the tank with the fans, they signed Suter and Precy and gave them a honeymoon for another 8 years. So it is amazing the way people keep showing up at those prices. And man alive, it's an incredible loyalty that people have adopted there. My theory is they hooked into the families better than any team we've ever had. And as I always say, mom, dad, and the 2 kids from Woodbury going to come in, going to spend $350 or $400. They can get beat 6-1, and when they're in the car going home, the mom and dad aren't going to say, "Wasn't that terrible? Gee, that was awful, wasn't it?"
Exactly.
Betsy back there at age 10, didn't you think they stunk tonight? It's not like It's not like the old guys in the bar jackets who used to populate the Wild, the East Siders from St. Paul who went to the North Star games and booed the crap out of them if they didn't get 3 shots on the power play. You know, it's a little different crowd. It's a little different crowd, to say the least.
They're bad in the dot, Patrick. They lost 40 face-offs to 26.
They're terrible in the face-offs. What is
terrible.
That?
What's that?
I wonder. I mean, some nights they're like, the other night I was watching the first, it was 18-4 on the face-offs at some point. Yeah. It's, I wonder why they're so bad.
I think it's
Koivu, but he hadn't been around for a couple of years. He was great, but I don't.
Their centers aren't very good, I guess is probably the basic way to say it. They've got a lot of guys who, have kind of filled in and done okay, but they've never really addressed kind of that facet of their roster, and I think they're paying for it now.
I wonder what the analytical boys in that sport, and you got them now, tell you about that. How often is it, what do winning 60% of the face-offs do for you? I mean, statistically, I wonder if that's worth 4 goals a month or something. What it's worth. It's interesting, but it does hurt you late in the game if you're trying to come back from a goal down and you never win a face-off, right? So
and obviously it hurts more if it's if you get an offensive zone draw, defensive zone draw, especially if it's a power play. Like a big thing is, I think one big thing I know is that if you're on the power play and if you win a offensive zone draw, there's a very good, your scoring chances go way up, and just so if you're either way in that scenario, you're in trouble if you're on the penalty kill, if you lose that draw, things like that. So I think that's probably where it comes into play the most. But
but they are probably the worst face-off team that the Wild have ever had, don't you think?
Seems like it. I don't know statistically, but they're bad.
Yeah, they are. I mean, some nights it's incredibly lopsided.
And on the flip side, the Wolves can't lose. I mean, and the Wolves are kind of, like you said, maybe the schedule eases up a little bit for the Wild here. At least they get a lot of home games, so maybe that'll help them turn it around. But, the Wolves have now won, 5 of 6 out of the break, and they've had, kind of taken advantage of some of these, softer games lately, even kind of catching some of these other teams not at full strength. They caught, Golden State not at full strength, and they beat Oklahoma City, then Portland. They've had all these back-to-backs, and they've done quite well to do what they've done. And now I believe their record is 36-29. Everybody above them keeps winning. So I don't know, what the target is, but man, I mean, 36-29, you're figuring they're going to cruise at least into the top 8, be able to have a couple cracks at the play-in, and then, go from there, and probably have just I believe the 9th winning season in franchise history.
Right.
And,
they made the playoffs. Did they make the playoffs? They made the playoffs 8 straight years.
They did, but 2 of those years were not winning. 2 of those years were not winning seasons.
Wow. Okay, and then they had a 1 winning season where the year that Flip got fired, I think, winning season, but they make the playoffs, and then the Fibs had 1 winning season. So that was it. That is amazing. Yeah, they're they got a bunch of guys got hurt the other night. Yeah, didn't play, or I don't know who's going to be on the court tonight. They play tonight, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think they play tonight.
Yeah, and again against Portland, and I don't know who they're going to have, but they were speaking about being loose. They were a little loose against Portland, but they ended up being able to score enough points. Cat has bailed them out the last couple of times, and he's playing good. He is playing good.
He's playing very well, and Russell's in a nice little groove. I mean, they haven't had Edwards lately, but they've been fine without him because he hadn't been given him much lately anyway, and hopefully this shutting him down now helps him, down the stretch when they'll need him again. They just kind of have a good mix right now. Like Beverly's just kind of one of those classic, like glue guy it's like a term that gets thrown around. It's a little overrated, but there's something about him that makes them accountable on the court. You can just kind of feel it. And I like that about him. I feel like he's kind of personality wise, I think he's kind of a little bit like Jimmy Butler, but not in the, he's like good. He's like the more of the good parts of Jimmy than the bad parts of Jimmy, I guess.
Yeah, that's probably true. I saw him tweeting the other day about how great he is and why isn't he being mentioned as defensive player of the year, stuff like that. He's a big personality, that's for sure. But man, he's got to be happier than heck. He's been kicked around from one team to another, and all of a sudden he comes in here and kind of helps change their defense a little bit, and he ends up getting $13 million contract. So
yep.
For next year.
Yeah, they extended him for a year.
But nothing wrong with having somebody who guards somebody. They've slacked off a little defensively from what they were earlier this year, but
yes,
they can still, he still could guard somebody, and they're interesting. This McLaughlin's an amazing story that he wasn't playing forever, and then he comes in and he's playing good minutes off the bench, and I like Noel a lot. And he doesn't get I like him. He don't get to play about 2/3 of the time, but when he gets some minutes, he can go to the basket and get some points. And one of their X factors to me is McDaniels. Some nights he's really good. Some nights you don't even know he's on the court, and I think it's whether they get involved or not. But he's when he plays good, they're good.
Yeah.
So, and of course,
he's got to stay out of foul trouble too, but he's done that a little bit better lately.
Russell is really the surprise to me, though. I think a surprise to all of us. He's just a better player than we thought he was. I mean, he didn't give he came in late 2 years ago and did nothing, and then he played 5 games or something and shut it down.
Right.
And then last year, lousy short season and didn't show me much. But he's he's not quite the goofball that I thought he was, and he's been good. He's been mostly good. Once in a while, he does some dumb things and makes some,
hero ball.
Yeah, right. That's a good word for it. But they're the most fun they've been in a while. That's for sure. And
they're kind of switching places with the Wild a little bit as the story, the fun team. I mean, they both have had a nice season, but now the Wolves 36-29, the Wild, I guess if you're counting overtime losses as losses, which I do, are 32-22. So they're kind of on parallel tracks right now, just getting there in different ways. But I still think they're going to have a hard time whenever they get to the postseason, because the way it's going to line up is they're probably going to end up playing the Clippers in that first play-in game. And do you want to play the Clippers? I don't think so. And then I still think they're going to play the Lakers in that second play-in game if they lose to the Clippers.
But unless Kawhi decides to play, I'll take the Clippers. That's
you take
fine.
You say you take the Wolves, you mean?
No, as an opponent.
I see what you mean. Yeah, if Paul George is playing, they lost to the Paul George Clippers 3 times earlier this year, so
they're better.
They are better now. Yeah. Hey, go ahead.
The Knicks pounded the Clippers last night.
Did they? They didn't blow a lead. They've been blowing leads lately.
Oh, God, it was awful. They've been blowing some awful leads. But do you see that I tweeted this out this morning. Julius Randle got fined $50,000 for confrontation with a player, and then a technical foul, and then he slapped the ref's hand away, and then he did not cooperate with the investigation, the NBA investigation. I say he doesn't have to cooperate with the investigation. People murder their whole families. They don't have to cooperate with the investigation, do they? They don't have to cooperate. He doesn't have to cooperate. He doesn't have to incriminate himself. The man is trying to get away with too much. We don't fight the man enough anymore. And good, Julius. Don't cooperate with the investigation. Say no comment. I'm not.
No comment. I didn't do anything. Get away from me.
They shouldn't be allowed to find an extra amount of money because he won't tell them what they want. The hell with that.
I like it.
I'm all on Julius's side.
Team Julius. Team
Yes,
Julius.
right.
Free
Yes.
Julius. We should make t-shirts.
Yes. I shouldn't cooperate. Why should you? What the hell? You saw it. What do you need me for?
Make your own judgment. I'll be over here. Say, I really enjoyed your piece with Tony O the other day. Tony Oliva touring Cooperstown. I knew that was coming. Maybe you could, for the listeners, kind of talk them through the opportunity. I know you got to do that with Puckett a number of years ago as well. Kind of what the hall does, what Tony was like that day last week.
Yeah, it was on Wednesday. And Tony came really early, but they do this with everyone who's getting inducted. They are invited to, they ask them if they want a local journalist to come, and if they have an idea who they want. And, I got a good relationship with Tony. And so they were sending emails to my old email address that I haven't used for 3 years. So I didn't find out until like a week beforehand that I was invited to go to this, and invited by the hall, not by Tony.
Right,
but Tony,
right.
The one that said, well, ask Reusse first. So, it was, it was an opportunity, and, get the hardest place in the world to get to. You got to fly into Albany on a lousy plane, and through Detroit and stuff, but it's worth it once you get there. And of course, Tony is quite the character, and funny guy. And it was great wandering around with him and to the various exhibits, because Tony still speaks in the thick accent from Cuba all these years later, and yet he sees everything, knows everything. Sometimes he's like all of us at that advanced age. We can't think of the name, but we can describe the person and
sure.
stuff like that. And I had a little of that in there, but he has an observation on walking around that place. Once you got into the 1950s, he knew everybody, and had something to say about everything he ran across. And that you go through the upstairs place that has all the artifacts and all that stuff, and then they took us down to the storage room. Have you been to Cooperstown, Mike?
Yeah, it's been a while. I went out there. It's been 15, 20 years, but I have been there.
So they have these floors of artifacts, but they have a storage room that has like 25, 50 times more stuff, and they change the displays, and they have all this stuff. So they took Tony down in the group he was with, his wife Gordette and his daughter Anita, and MLB camera crew, and Julie from the Twins, and there was a few of us, about 12 maybe. But down in that storage room, they had laid out a bunch of artifacts, bats and stuff that they thought would be of interest to Tony, Rod Cruz bat, Babe Ruth bat, stuff like that. And, he had a comment on every one of those things. And it was just, it's great. Tony's back isn't real good, and but his knees are fine, and he made her around, and it was about an hour and a half of walking around, and then he went down to the plaque room, and then got his Hall of Fame jersey and did a little press conference, and it was fun to be there, that's for sure. And it'll be interesting to see how many Minnesotans we get out there to see Oliva Cott July 25th. It's I'm always amazed that people find their way out there, because that there's about 4 hotels in that town.
Sure.
I stayed in a hotel called the Railroad Inn, which is kind of a new place. It's an old railroad depot.
Okay.
They could have filmed The Shining in there the night I was there. It was like I was the only person. But of course, all summer, and then Hall of Fame week, it'll be like crawling. But this little town, people, has got like 2 bars and a restaurant. It's I don't know how they possibly. I've been there 4 or 5 times on Hall of Fame weekend, but I never really wandered down to the other end of the street to see what are people doing. I mean, where do you eat? If you want to get something to eat, what do you do? I was there in the early March in the snow, and I couldn't get into the one restaurant in town, to have a hamburger. Right. And then there was one bar, and there was 50 cars outside that place. And it's just an amazing little town. And, it's the quaint New England town, even though upstate New York is basically New England. But, all those little towns around it, when you're driving out of there, that they call quaint, they ain't quaint. They're dumps. They're all dumps. There's nothing in
They're just old. They're just old.
Old, fallen, ramshackle place. And it's
they're trying to be polite and call them quaint, but they're not.
Quaint. Yeah, they're not quaint. But yeah, it was he's honest to God, this is not BS. He was my favorite player. I loved him as a hitter, because back then it is he had the combination of some power, but the great line drive hitter. And I loved him as a hitter, but then he was still there, when I took over the beat in 74, and just found out, I dealt with him some doing clubhouse stories for the St. Paul paper in the early 70s, but as the beat guy, I just found out what a great guy he was and how much fun he was, and his observations on life, which will come out of nowhere. But so I consider myself he was my favorite player, and then he kind of became my favorite guy to cover, even though I only saw him play 74, 75 as a beat guy. And then after he was hitting coach, and he was around all the time, but just a hell of a guy. And it was fun to be there with him. And it was that piece I did on him and Gordette being married 52 or 3 years. That was funny too, because I was, we were still pretty much in the middle of the pandemic, and, you were looking for stuff. And so I called up Anita and said, like on Monday, and I said, when is your folks' wedding anniversary? Because I've always been fascinated by Gordette bringing this Black Cuban guy home to Hitchcock, South Dakota, which was not a Becca of diversity back then, right? So and then here they are 50 some years later. And anyway, Anita said Thursday. So I
had to hustle that one in.
I had to hustle that one, but it worked out good. So I mean, I've always been as reporters and subjects go, I've always been close to him. So it was, that was when they offered us the opportunity, and thanks to Chris Carr and the editors, they said, yeah, do it. So it worked out good. Yeah. Got a big public reaction to it too, because everybody loves Tony.
Yes.
If you met Tony, you love Tony. And it's funny. I had a couple of seats in the Legends Club that I shared with some people when the Twins first came.
Yeah.
And Tony's seats were behind us,
Okay.
So every time somebody got my tickets, they'd send me a text saying, "You can't believe who I was sitting next to." And I'd say, "Let me see. Let me guess. Tony Oliva." Yes, that was it.
That's funny.
He's been with us for he's 83, and he came here first in 1962, and for brief stay, and then 64, and
like almost 60 years.
One of the interesting things he told me, they bought a place in Miami for 5-6 years, and then they got rid of it because Gordette told me after a couple of weeks, Tony'd say, "Let's go home."
Wow.
They'd be down there. Let's go back. Let's go back home and see the grandkids and see our buddies in Minnesota. And We got to tell some of the good stories about his folks, though, and especially his dad, who I know, like, still one of my favorite stories is dad gets up here for the first time. Tobacco farmer from the greatest roller of cigars in that area. He was a legendary tobacco paper roller. And a baseball guy, but never been here. Never been anywhere but Cuba.
Okay.
And so he flies up. They pick him up at the airport downstairs in the valet. It's 15 below outside, but they pick him up in the valet, and then they drive him back to their place, and they drive into the garage, and he gets out of the garage and goes in the house, and the next morning he wakes up early, like old guys have a tendency to do, and it's a beautiful sunny winter day. So he puts on his walking shorts and his t-shirt, and he's going to take a walk like he has in Cuba for 50, 60 years. And he takes one step outside. They never get him outside again for the rest of he couldn't believe it. It was like, I guess he came back and his eyes were like huge. He couldn't believe what hit him. And it's, he still has, he had 10. There were 10 of them. I think 7 are still alive, maybe 8, and but there's 2 living up here, and then I think he still has 6 siblings and 60 nieces, nephews,
wow.
grand nieces, nephews down in Cuba, and he's trying to get a couple of them out to come up and for the ceremony.
For the induction, yeah.
It's not easy. His brother, one of his brothers, Juan Carlos, played for 10 years on the Cuban national team.
Oh, yeah.
So he might be able to come up. But do you realize that he and Minnie Minoso are only the second and third Cuban major league players to be in the Hall of Fame?
No.
Tony Perez is the only other one.
Wow, I didn't know that.
This is Cuban born now, and you're not going to have it one of those. So
right.
It might, but it's going to be a while.
Sure.
And there's 3 who played in the Negro Leagues that are, so they give credit to 6 Cubans, but only
3
Tony Perez and now Minnie Minoso.
Huh. Wow.
And they are from Cuba with its great baseball history. There's only 3 major league players from Cuba in the Hall of Fame.
That's amazing. Well, it must have been a nice, a nice day all around, but a nice break. Maybe we'll finish with this from, the negative baseball talk. And I know you kind of came to some conclusions in that piece about how there's, enough things when you look at the history of the game to celebrate it. And even some of the, the stuff on the field still looks good to certain degrees now, but man, I don't know when they're going to play this thing again, because it doesn't seem like they're getting any closer. And like we were talking about before we started, the owners have less incentive to start anytime soon just because of the way the financials work out. So they're digging in right now. It doesn't look good.
Well, the next big fight too is going to be once you get some kind of an agreement, okay, and when God knows when that is, then the players then the fight's going to be how much of their pay do they get, right?
Yes.
The owners are going to just try to prorate it on how many games are left, right?
Yes.
And the players are going to fight for full salaries. They won't get full salaries, but that's going to be the next great fight here. But everybody, I've always said I've been down on Manfred forever because I use stupid ideas about 14 teams in the playoffs and idiotic stuff like that. But which he's going to win. But there's got to be some reality on the other side too. And Max Scherzer, who's got what 40 million a year. Is it 40 million a year? He's making
something like that. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. He got this incredible contract, and he's out there throwing around ideas and trying to, why do you have? Why are all the guys representing the players the rich guys?
Right.
I don't have anybody who's like, in his 5th year making $3 million a year or something. Jake Cave or somebody like that.
Right.
Why do we have all these? Why do you got the guys? I don't know. I wonder gotta think Scott Boras has got a lot to do with this. I know he's in on the Scott Super Twos battle too and stuff like that. So I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The owners have the advantage of not giving a damn when they play.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the teams do, the ones that are selling season tickets, and they're gonna have to start giving money back to the regional sports networks and stuff here pretty soon. But there seems to be no indication that anything has changed since last week when they shut her down.
Doesn't feel like it. And that's, that's not great. I had Derek Scherer on last week talking about the Saints and just, I think some people don't realize that minor leagues go on. They won't have the guys from the 40 man, but the Saints might be the only show in town for a while, which at least we'll have that, but not looking good on the other side of the river.
No. And I just don't know. It's amazing how, my whole life, baseball has been my game, and I still, have a loyalty to baseball, but my passion for it is not what it was, not even close. And I think that when you start getting guys like me saying, to hell with it, got problems. And I mean, it's just, honest to God, I covered 24 straight World Series, and it was the highlight of most of my years, right? I love covering the Series. And now there was a couple of times last year where they drove me so crazy during the World Series. I watched something on Netflix for an hour and came back, and I only missed 2 innings.
Right.
I mean, they cannot let the game drag on like that. And, he says, what difference does it make if it's 4 hours? Don't watch it. You want to watch the game. You want you need. You
want something to happen too.
Yes. It's not just the youth of America. The youth of America has moved on long ago because they got video games and stuff. But I'm at my age, I don't have that long to live. I want to, I don't want to spend 4 hours watching a baseball game that's lasting 8.5 innings.
Right.
Come on. If it's a 16 game inning between the Mets and the Astros in the playoffs that lasts 4 hours, okay, I can take it. But not some 8.5 inning game just because you change pitchers 14 times during a game. For God's sakes, get your heads out of that non-sunlit place and let's go.
Yes.
I mean, you got to do something. Whatever. Now, if they would actually start the 19 second clock, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
The pitch clock. Yeah.
Pitch. They said it took 20 minutes off games, and
they should do the pitch clock. Do the pitch clock, and
people say, "Well, how do you enforce it?" Really easy. If you don't if you have 3 violations, see ya, goodbye.
Yeah, right.
You're affected.
Yeah.
And by the way, the guy coming in from the bullpen gets 1 warm-up pitch.
Because he just threw 30 of them in the bullpen. Doesn't need to throw 8 more in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Well, he does if you're going to get those commercials, but
How about also putting a stopwatch on the manager or walking to the mound?
Yeah.
Why does this have to be the long trip? I mean, I'm 70. I'm fat and 76. I could get out there in 4 seconds. It doesn't have to take 20 seconds. Let's get a little jog going here, for God's sake. Let's not have a 12-minute discussion. You know whether you're going to take him out or not. When you hit the foul line, wave. We don't need 14 guys out there talking for 4 minutes when we all know what the result of it's going to be. Let's get things moving. That's
agree.
Yeah.
Well,
so anyway.
One final thought. Just saw that sounds like the state house is going to introduce some sports wagering, new sports wagering bill today. So we'll see where that goes. Sounds like there's a lot of momentum for this one, Patrick. I think it's coming.
across the border in the St. Croix, for God's sake, St. Croix Casino at Turtle Lake.
Yep.
You could Iowa. It's 10 minutes over the border in Iowa.
Yep.
What the hell are we waiting for?
Yep.
Let's go.
I think it's coming this time. All right, Patrick.
All right.
Good stuff, sir. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Goodbye.